Hey there, you awesome people. I hope your day has been nothing short of fantastic. Welcome back to a brand new episode of What If Deku ate the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Izuku used to be quirkless, but that all changed when he sunk his teeth into an unusual fruit, granting him the power to stretch his body like rubber. With this newfound ability, he's on a quest to become the ultimate hero. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. If you're totally vibing with this what if scenario, drop me a comment and let your thoughts be known. And while you're at it, don't miss out on other mind-blowing what ifs on this channel. Alright, without further ado, let's dive straight into this video. Dorm system? Asked Izuku and Inko, blinking in shock as they had finished their breakfast with Toshinori. It's a plan Principal Nezu had come up with, answered Toshinori. In the next few days, I'll be accompanying Aizawa to visit the rest of the students of 1A, while Kansas and Nezu will visit the students of 1B about transitioning UA High into a boarding school. I figured since I'm already here, I might as well tell you too about it. It's become clear that the threat isn't over, not with All for One's disciple, Shigaraki Tomura, still out there. Nezu and the rest of the staff agree that we need to protect and nurture the students, especially those of the hero course. This way, our students will be protected not only by the hero staff on duty, but along with the security system. Toshinori paused to take a quick sip of tea before continuing, especially with Izuku. No doubt All for One has already leaked out to his disciple that he is an important piece. So I'm here today to also ask you for permission. Of course we'll be fine, right? Asked Izuku, looking at her mother, only to see her face slightly contorted. Inko looked over at Toshinori and Izuku a few more times before sighing. To be honest, I'm almost against it. The two were shocked as Inko continued. My son was kidnapped at a summer training camp that was supposed to be at a safe and secure location. He was brought to your arch-nemesis, who survived for more than 200 years, and killed your mentor before. Then, in front of everyone, he tried to steal my son's supposed quirk. How else is a mother supposed to feel? Izuku is my only son. It frightens me. Though you won against him twice now, you had to suffer for years with such injuries. Would Izuku, who idolizes you, end up following the same path? I can't help but wonder if my child remained quirkless, if he just admired heroes from far away, instead of trying to become one, would Izuku be happier? Izuku stood up in response, ready to argue when Inko held up her hand to stop Izuku from talking a bit. In the end, though, I know my baby boy will always chase his dream, no matter what. The fact that he even attracted your attention before going to UA, but a mother just can't help but worry. Not to mention there are other hero courses of other schools that would likely not have as many risks, being a lower target. But in the end, Izuku is your chosen successor. No matter where he goes, he'll be a target. So the safest will be at UA, with you, even if I am a bit uncomfortable about it. Toshinori silently stood up, facing Inko before actually kneeling in front of her, his face touching the ground. I swear by my life that I will protect Izuku and watch him surpass me. I'll be there to make sure that he never has to walk the path I had to. No, never by your life, rejected Inko as she gently lifted Toshinori's head up. Live and help protect and nurture my son to the fullest extent possible. You've already sworn in front of us that you would devote yourself to raising Izuku. It was that oath that I'm willing to let Izuku return to UA. Inko gently kissed Toshinori on the forehead, and you must also live for me, too. I won't let you go that easily. If Izuku lives at the dorm, it's going to be a bit lonely for me, I admit. Of course, nodded Toshinori eagerly. If you prefer, I have an apartment closer to the dorms that are about the same size as this one, though with more modern appliances. He had bought the apartment so he could travel to UA faster, considering his original office was back in Roppongi. Toshinori, however, was willing to splurge some money on a bigger apartment or even a house if needed. He had plenty of money to spare, considering he never really used most of it. Not to mention Melissa was currently living with him, though that might change with the dorm system. I will consider it, said Inko. Truth be told, it was tempting. Her job was mainly on the computer, meaning she could really work from almost anywhere, and any modeling gigs with Mitsuki was usually arranged by a car ride from the company. The apartment itself didn't have any lingering memories that she treasured besides her time with Izuku and lately, Toshinori. Anything sentimental could be easily packed. Well, I must leave, stood up Toshinori. I have to finish the news interview that I'm retiring, as well as prepare for the parent meetings about the dorm system. Izuku, try not to leave the house for a while until you get settled into the dorms. A pro hero and a few cops have been dispatched to safeguard the area for a little, but they would prefer that you stay in one place. Kamiya Woods has volunteered to be the hero overwatching your safety. A similar situation should be happening at the Bakugo household as well. Izuku grunted as he finished up his bench press set, letting the bar clash against the stopper. With a sigh, Izuku quickly washed his face before heading over to his computer. Due to the restrictions, none of his friends or girlfriends had been able to come over to visit, even when he was at the hospital. So his only way to see them was via online chats, though he would be able to see them soon when he moved into the dorms. He had already started packing most of the stuff that he had planned to bring with him, including some of his limited editions All Might posters and figurines, though not all of it. His computer set, monitor, and desktop included, along with several of his USB memory cards that contained all his hero data, were safely boxed up and ready to transport. Speaking of which, I should find some way to combine all that data into one system. It would be easier to access, thought Izuku himself as began to pack his clothes. Suddenly, he heard someone knocking on his bedroom door. Turning around, he saw his mom gently opening the door. "So you're leaving soon," whispered Inko softly, taking a seat on the empty bed. "Yay, the official move-in day is tomorrow," nodded Izuku. "Just got a couple more things to pack up." Good, nodded Inko. "I might consider actually taking up Toshinori's offer about moving closer to you." "That would be nice, but isn't that a bit fast?" asked Izuku. "Maybe, but I would feel too lonely with myself here when you're gone. Not to mention it would also be closer to Mitsuki's house," admitted Inko. "There's not much keeping me here. But that's a conversation for a later time. Right now, there's something I want to go over with you. Something important." Izuku turned around, giving his mother his full attention, wondering what she wanted to talk about. "It's about your dorm system," continued Inko. "Now, I'm going to need you to listen carefully. You're about to live in a place with no real adult supervision, as well as doing your own chores. I want you to always be mindful and clean up after yourself. No developing any bad habits, alright?" Izuku nodded, already wondering where Inko was going with this. All this seemed to be common sense, but he supposed she wanted to drive that lesson in. "And finally, I know the temptation will be hard to resist without any parental control in your age, along with all those nice and beautiful girls that are going to stay in the same dorm, but remember to use protection and don't lose control," finished Inko as she pushed a box into his hand. Izuku blinked as his mind slowly registered what his mom had said, along with eyes finally noticing that his mom had just given him a box of condoms. "Mom?" exclaimed Izuku in embarrassment, tossing the box into the air in shock, only for Inko to pull it back down with her quirk. "I'm quite serious. Though I don't think you're one to be irresponsible nor sleep with another girl for fun or worse, but it's better to have these in those moments," continued Inko. "Or is it they're too small? I wasn't sure how big yours was. My ex was pretty average in that department, though Toshinori is much bigger for sure. Fufufu, perhaps you inherited more from Toshinori than Hiashi in more ways than one. But here, if those are too small, you can use these." Without hesitation, Inko pulled another box of condoms from somewhere, exchanging them with the first one. Izuku was too busy panicking and sputtering at his mother's words to even try to defend himself. He continued to suffer from his mother's personal talk about the birds and bees for an hour, before Inko was finally satisfied. Though Izuku said that such a situation wouldn't happen, it didn't stop him from actually putting them into his luggage. Izuku swore that it was merely a precaution and nothing else. Izuku, along with the class of 1A and 1B as well as Hitachi, were standing in awe at the several buildings that had certainly not been there 3 days ago. Currently, they are meeting up at 1A dormitory. Looking around, Izuku saw that everyone had made a full recovery as well as gotten permission to stay at the dorms. "Glad to see you finally," exclaimed Itsuka as she gave Izuku a bear hug, her hand enlarging to emphasize the squeeze. "You had us so worried when you were kidnapped. We couldn't even see you after the whole kidnapping." Izuku was glad he had a rubber body, otherwise, he was sure his bones would have been fractured, and his internal organs displaced from the pressure Itsuka was giving. "It really is a welcoming sight to see you safe," nodded Momo as she gently placed her hand onto Izuku's shoulder, relishing in the warmth. Ichako nodded her head rapidly. She had her hug with him back when they managed to rescue him and Katsuki, though she desperately wanted more. Seeing Izuku disappear right before her eyes had frightened her to the core so much that she needed someone to cuddle when she slept, mainly with Momo. While Izuku managed to get Itsuka to release him, he glanced over to Tsuyu, who seemed to be a bit distant, as well as a bit further away from them. When Tsuyu saw his gaze, she quickly turned her head away. Before Izuku could question this, Shota and Vlad had come out, distracting him from Tsuyu for a while. Everyone's attention was on the two teachers now. "It looks like we managed to get everyone back," boomed Vlad. "For now, I'm just glad that we were able to bring everyone in the hero course back together again," muttered Shota, ignoring the muttering of students of how some of them took a while to convince their parents to let them come. "Now I'll explain briefly about the dorms, but first, the plan was for you all to get provisional licenses after the training camp, which clearly didn't happen." Shota coughed into his hand before continuing. "So tell me, Kirishima, Yoirozu, Todoroki, Uraraka, Iida, and Kendo. You 6 went to go save Bakugo and Midoriya that night." Shota silently observed the whole class, noting their reactions. To his dismay, nearly all of 1A knew about their plans, with only Kyoka and Toru being the exception, as they had been unconscious. Vlad noted that in his class that the ones who had managed to escape the gas attack were also well aware of the plan. He saw Monoma about to say something, only for Yui to harshly pinch his arm to shut him up. "Your reactions tell me most of you were all aware of it. I'm going to set aside a number of issues and be very clear and blunt about this. If it wasn't for All Might's retirement, then I would have expelled everyone in my class except for Bakugo, Midoriya, Jiro, and Higakure. And as for you 1B, if I was also in charge of your class, I would have expelled Kendo, Yusetsu, Kadai, Yanagi, Tetsu, and Shota as well, declared Shota, causing them all to shake. Of course 6 people went, but the rest of you were aware of the plan, but didn't stop them. You betrayed our trust, regardless of the reason. I heard that one of the students did attempt to stop them, only to be restrained. I would be grateful if you could follow proper procedures and act properly in order to regain that trust. He had no idea that Melissa had been on it, as she had been a late add-on to the group. Nonetheless, All Might did lecture her about doing something so dangerous. That is all. Now, we're going inside for the tour. All the dorms are relatively the same, so we're just going to do one group tour to save time, finished Shota, turning around to enter the building. Raise her head, you can't just end it like that, sighed an exasperated lad. How the heck are the students supposed to react to that? While most of the students looked down in shock and depression, Katsuki's eyes caught onto Ijiro's frowning face, a face that didn't seem like it belonged there. So, in order to break the tension, he grabbed Denki by the scruff of his shirt and dragged him behind some bushes, despite his pleas. Moments later, the students were shocked when they saw bolts of electricity suddenly flying up into the air, before a short-circuited Denki was pushed out towards them. Kyoka couldn't help laughing even as she covered her mouth to try to stifle it. The other students couldn't help but laugh as Kyoka had already fired the first trigger. While they were distracted, Katsuki shoved 5 Yukichi bills, 10,000 yen bills, into Ijiro's chest, shocking and scaring him a bit at the amount. Shut up and take it. You use up your allowance, right? Barked Katsuki, reminding Ijiro about the night vision scope he had bought for the rescue mission. If you have to scrimp and save, that'll make me feel bad. Katsuki huffed and walked off, intent on ending it there. He paused when he felt a hand suddenly shove something into his pocket. Quickly looking down, he noticed a hand retracting back to its owner, before realizing Izuku had stuffed something there. Taking a peek, Katsuki saw Izuku had shoved 25,000 yen into his pocket to pay for half. He was tempted to hurl the money back, but decided against it. The 50,000 yen he had given to Ijiro had pretty much taken a good chunk of his own allowance. This was Izuku's way of saying he wanted to pay for half of Ijiro's own expenses as thanks for the rescue. Shota waited patiently for the students to calm down from Denki's antics before starting the tour. Each student dorm building holds one class. Girls on the right and the boys on the left. The first floor is the common room, where food, baths, and laundry are on, began Shota, while the other students began to eagerly explore. Ichiko would have been overwhelmed if it wasn't for the fact that she had been living at Momo's mansion for the first semester. At the 1B dorm, it's the other way around, commented Vlad. 1B will be next door, so to speak, so as to prevent any chance of peeping. The order will be alternated, so the male can only see another male if they look out the balcony. Did you hear that? Whispered Kasei to Mineta. The bath and laundry area on the same floor. Whispered Mineta back, his eyes wide with hope. They're separated by gender. Don't get any idea, growled Vlad as he lightly bonked the 2 perverts by the head. Rooms start from the 2nd floor, 4 rooms per gender on each floor, with 5 floors total. Everyone gets their own luxurious room with their own AC, toilet, fridges, and closets, continued Shota as he led them to a room, allowing them to explore a bit. The rooms have already been allocated, with your luggages delivered to your room, explained Vlad, pointing to a map when they arrived back to the 1st floor. If you have any questions regarding your room or wish to trade rooms, just come to us along with the student you wish to trade with. As long as it is reasonable, we will accommodate. That being said, having a male student switching over to the other side is forbidden, and vice versa. Oppu, pouted Sasuna, and here I wanted to get a closer look at some delicious specimens. The boys who were in earshot couldn't help but feel a shiver up their spine when she said that, especially with her sharp teeth bared. Shinso, you'll have a choice of either dorming at 1 or 1B, up to you. 1B has more rooms available on the boys' side, but 1 still has some to spare, said Shota, passing by Shinso. Shinso will dorm with us, of course, exclaimed Nito, pulling Shinso next to him. After all, we're the superior class. Itsuka immediately chopped Nito on the neck as punishment, while Shinso extracted himself off Nito, deciding to dorm at 1 as Shota would be there more often. Izuku quickly scanned through the chart map, finding his room before looking at just who was located at where. 2nd floor. Mineta, Sero, Aoyama, Tokoyami. 3rd floor. Kuda, Kaminari, Iida, Ojiro, Jiro, Higakure. 4th floor. Shoji, Kirishima, Bakugo, Shinso, Uraka, Ashido. 5th floor. Sato, Todoroki, Midoriya, Yoyorozu, Asi. On the 5th floor, muttered Izuku before realizing the 1B dorms were on the left side of 1A. Cool, you're on the 5th floor. Vlad-sensei brought our list over, and I'm on the 5th floor too. Too bad it alternated so I can't see you out the window to say goodnight, but it's probably for the best. Chimed Itsuka as she peeked over Izuku's shoulders. Probably, agreed Izuku. For the time being, go unpack and settle in for today. We'll go over more of what's going to happen tomorrow. That's all, dismissed. Finished Shota as he began to walk away. He had a nice cold sleeping bag waiting for his nap. Izuku grinned as he stretched his arm to grab some of his posters before putting them on the wall. With his quirk, he could easily stretch to where he needed to be. Izuku raised an eyebrow when he heard strange noises coming from Shoto's room, as if wood was being torn up. Shrugging at that, he continued to finish organizing his new room, getting ready to set his computer up when his phone rang. Quickly picking it off from the shelf, he put it on. He looked down to see Melissa calling him. "Hey Melissa," smiled Izuku as he picked up the phone. "Oh good, you're alright," sighed Melissa in relief. "I haven't been able to contact or see you at all after what happened. Sorry about that. The Hero Public Safety Commission and the police had decided it would be safer for me to be isolated for the while." Winced Izuku. "Are you at a UA dorms too?" "Yay, though our dorms are directly connected to the workshop, which is good," nodded Melissa. "I can continue inventing without too much hassle. I admit the room is smaller than what I'm used to from Island, but it's enough to keep myself busy. Plus, thanks to the location of my room, I actually have a secret passage to a medical facility, where Papa shipped most of the equipment meant to help with Uncle Mike's injury. Since I'm one of the few who knows how to operate it, I've got access to some more room to tinker." "Have you met your classmates?" asked Izuku. "Some. A few are afraid of me due to my father being David's shield, but a few have been more open. One of the girls, Bibimi Kenunzaki, is kind of interesting. She's very expressive and a bit vain, but she does know how to invent things." I ended up having an hour-long conversation about some of her inventions before we realized we needed to finish unpacking. "Thankfully, my new quirk allows me to multitask easily," grinned Melissa as she looked over to see multiple hands setting up her private computer and server. Such a task would have taken her at least an hour to make sure everything was right, but with multiple limbs and eyes helping her, it took much less. "I love my new quirk," grinned Melissa to herself before continuing. "Anyways, when can I see you? I was terrified when you got kidnapped twice." "Soon probably," replied Izuku as he finished putting down where he wanted his computer at, getting ready to plug in all the cords. "We're settling down for today, but we should be back in class tomorrow." "Good. You better be prepared for a big hug." "I'm still peeved I didn't get to see my boyfriend after all that," declared Melissa. "Well, I should focus on finishing my room. We're supposed to be meeting some of the underclassmen as well as some of the third-year hero students later." With that, the two of them hung up, focused on finishing decorating their rooms. Soon enough, nighttime came as everyone began to relax in the common room. Each one of the students had just finished finalizing their room arrangements when the girls suddenly suggested a room presentation contest. For obvious reasons, Minetta's room was skipped as the girls had no desire to mentally scar themselves. Skipping most of the room presentation, it's going to have the same reaction as canon. "Let's go to Shinso's room," exclaimed Mina. Probably not a good idea. He went to bed early like Bakugo did, piped in Ijiro. "Truth be told, I'm starting to crash too." "Then we're going to Iji's room," exclaimed Mina, changing tracks easily. Ijiro shrugged before letting them know that he doubted the girls would appreciate his room, as it was filled with manly stuff. Toru commented that it was ranked number 2 for the room you'd least want your boyfriend to have, which made Mina slightly frown at that comment. Though she could somewhat agree with that statement, she also liked the Ijiro flair that it had. After Shoji's rather empty room, they went to Sato's first, where they promptly had a cake that he had been baking earlier. After finishing the delicious cake, the class of 1 was promptly surprised at Shoto's Japanese-style room. "When and how did you have time to remodel it in a day?" shouted Mineta when Shoto explained that he couldn't relax without the tatami floor. "So that explains all the noise," thought Izuku as Shoto shrugged and replied that he had worked hard. "And last but not least, Midoriya's room," exclaimed Mina. Izuku twitched, slightly realizing it was his turn next and starting to panic a bit. As much as he wanted to just block out the door like Fumikage did, he knew it would be fruitless as Mina and Toru were on a mission to see all rooms, especially when he had joined in the party. Bracing himself, he opened his own door to let the others. "Wow, there's quite a bit of All Might merchandise," commented Toru as the first thing she saw were a few posters and figurines of All Might. "Well, he is my inspiration," blushed Izuku, scratching the back of his head. He didn't want to mention that he had a lot more back at home. "Dude, aren't these the limited edition models?" asked Denki as he got a closer look. "These are like, ultra rare." "Oh yay, I had to wait in line with Bakugo and Aunt Mitsuki for a full day to get that one," replied Izuku. "Hey, what's this? It looks like some sort of punching bag with poles sticking out of it," asked Ijiro, poking at the said object. "Oh, that's a wooden dummy that Master Rikai recently gave me," answered Izuku, walking over to it. "We use these to practice in my dojo. When she heard about me moving into the dorms and being unable to come to the dojo often, she gave me this, telling me to keep up with my practice." "That's manly. How do I use it?" asked Ijiro as he punched the dummy at where the head would be. Before Izuku could even explain, he saw Mineta snooping at his desktop. A bit irritated, Izuku marched over and picked Mineta up. "Why are you so close to my computer?" asked Izuku irritably. I just wanted to see what type of computer it was, whined Mineta. This looks like a custom-built model. It is, said Izuku slowly as he put Mineta down. It's cheaper to buy the parts and assemble a computer by yourself, as long as you know what to do. Thankfully, that's what YouTube is for. Another company that lived through the chaotic times was Google, and by extension, YouTube. I just update the parts that need replacement every now and then, instead of buying a new computer, continued Izuku. Why so many USB ports? Asked Mineta, pointing to the multi-USB port extension to his desktop. Is it for the private photos of girls that you have so many in storage, that you ran out of room, and thus made these so you can be? No, shot down Izuku immediately while also punching Mineta on the head, knowing just where his perverted mind was going with. I use USB sticks to keep all my hero notes in secure storage. I don't feel comfortable leaving the data inside the computer itself. Unfortunately, I've taken so many notes over the years that I've had to buy more to keep track. And since it's annoying to pull one USB stick for another to sift through, I bought the multi-port USB, so I can plug them all in at once. Wouldn't it be easier if you bought a server? Asked Momo. Would be, yes, but those are a bit expensive, winced Izuku. I bought those in bulk when they were on sale, but I need to upgrade to a bigger memory soon. Momo hummed as she mentally ticked off what she was going to buy Izuku next. Though his birthday might have already passed, there were other holidays that she could gift him that present. They soon went through all the girls' rooms, though Mineta had to be heavily restrained by Hanta, so as to not let his perverted tendencies run rampant. It was only then did they notice that Tsuyu had been missing, but Ichako covered, saying that Tsuyu hadn't been feeling well. Nobody noticed her door opening slightly to reveal Tsuyu peeking out. Momo blushed as she opened her door to reveal that she had grossly miscalculated how small the room was going to be, as her furniture, especially the bed, took up almost her whole room. Is there a way you can use the room next to you? Asked Izuku, remembering the room next to Momo was empty, or purchase a smaller bed. I can certainly purchase a smaller bed, but it would be preferable if I can expand the room instead, nodded Momo. I prefer my current mattress to sleep in. With that, the room presentations were over, and the winner turned out to be Rikio Sato, due to his unexpected bribery of cake. Just as everyone was about to head to sleep though, Mina held back Tenya, Shoto, Momo, Ichiro, Ichako, and Izuku. She quickly led them outside, where not only Tsuyu was already waiting, but also Itsuka and Yui. Tsuyu-chan has something she wants to say to you all, explained Mina, letting Tsuyu take over. I can't help but say everything that comes to my mind. But there are times when I don't know what to say, croaked Tsuyu in a low voice. Do you remember what I said back at the hospital? The others quickly recalled her words when they had debated about rescuing Izuku and Katsuki. No matter how noble or just the intentions are, if you're saying you'll fight again while breaking the rules, those actions are no different from those of villains. Those words, I hardened my heart and said some painful things. Even then, you all still went through it. When I heard about it this morning, I was shocked. I thought I stopped you, which made me feel disappointed in myself. I still don't know what to say, so I didn't feel like I could have fun talking with everyone, but that made me even sadder, confessed Tsuyu as tears began to drip down her eyes. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, even if I can't gather my thoughts properly. So I could have fun and talk with everyone again like before. She's not the only one who feels this way, sighed Mina. Everyone's a bit uneasy, so that's why I initiated the Room King, not only because we know how you all felt, but to come together as classmates again, to work together and laugh together. Everyone immediately began to comfort Tsuyu, who was outright crying now, though it was tampering off. Shoto was first to leave, stating that he was getting sleepy as he had used up his whole day to reconstruct his room. Seeing this, Yui had Tenya escort her back to 1B, stating that she was feeling tired. Tenya, being the gentleman, agreed to escort her back. Mina saw this as a chance for Izuku and his girlfriends to be alone, so she immediately pulled Ichiro with her, who offered no resistance. So we're leaving them alone? Asked Ichiro. This is a rare moment for them. Plus, I'm sure Tsuyu has something more she wants to say to Midoriya, replied Mina before suddenly pushing Ichiro against the wall. Mina, what are you doing? Gulped Ichiro nervously. Mina glared at Ichiro for a good 10 seconds before collapsing onto his chest. Ichiro blinked before registering that Mina had buried her head into his chest. I was so scared, mumbled Mina from his chest. I could barely sleep, thinking about what you were doing. When I saw Midoriya suddenly get warped back into that monster's grip, I thought the worst. That you had all failed, or worse, gotten killed. I kept walking in circles until I got the text from you saying you were alright, and the rescue mission had been more or less a success. I was so relieved when I got that text that the last thing I remembered was collapsing onto my bed. When Mina looked up, Ichiro saw tears in her eyes and immediately wrapped his arms around her. Hey, I told you we'd be alright, right? And we never actually fought the villains, comforted Ichiro, and in the end, everything went pretty well. But what if next time, it doesn't? Whispered Mina. What if you get hurt with your recklessness? Then I'll become a shield that won't get hurt. Exclaimed Ichiro. I'll become stronger and harden even further, so attacks bounce off me. Mina couldn't help but chuckle at Ichiro's statement before leaning forward, her mouth close to his ears. "You better hold that promise, alright?" whispered Mina to Ichiro's ear, blowing a small puff of air into it, before finally letting go of Ichiro, walking away to her room. It did not escape Ichiro's notice that Mina was walking with a bit of flair on her hips. Back with Izuku and the others, Tsuyu was slowly drying her tears before looking at Izuku. Without hesitation, Tsuyu hugged Izuku, wrapping her arms around his chest. "I'm sorry. Please don't hate me," whispered Tsuyu. "Why would I hate you?" asked Izuku, completely puzzled by that question. "Because I chose to stay back while the others went to rescue you," mumbled Tsuyu. "Out of everyone in this relationship with you, I was the only one who didn't try to rescue you. I was torn on my decision when Kirishima said he was going no matter what. Even though I knew if any one of us had been kidnapped, you would have chosen the rescue plan. Yet I failed to reciprocate that." Tsuyu looked up to Izuku with her eyes begging now. "I understand if you don't feel the same way about me now, and even if you want to break up, but I..." Izuku immediately hugged Tsuyu, stopping her from talking. "I would never break up with you over something so small as this," breathed Izuku. "You were merely acting upon logic and keeping yourself grounded. It's a trait that quite a few heroes lack now, a valuable one. I would never want you to change who you are just for me. I like you the way you are." Tsuyu's eyes began to tear up before she began to cry once more, her arms snaking up around Izuku to hug him tightly. "Tsuyu, none of us have any feelings of malintent when you decided to stay behind," said Momo as she gently hugged Tsuyu from behind. "We understood your reasoning, but we chose to ignore it out of desperation. You have nothing to be ashamed about." The others slowly closed in, hugging in a group until it was time to head to sleep. As I mentioned yesterday, both classes of the hero course will be focusing on getting their provisional licenses, announced Shota to his class. As soon as the students were seated, a hero license bears with it the great responsibility of human life. Of course, the exam to receive one is very difficult. Even the provisional license has only a 50% passing rate each year. While the students couldn't help but mutter about how strict the testing was, Shota continued on, unfazed by his students' whispers. "That's why today, we will have each of you come up with at least 2 ultimate moves." At that last statement, the door opened up to reveal Midnight, Cementus, and Ectoplasm. The students all began to cheer in excitement at this before Shota had them change into their hero costume and meet up at Gym Gamma, otherwise known as Training Dining Land, or TDL for short. Why do all their abbreviations match famous amusement parks? Thought the class of one while Cementus explained more about the facility. Tenya couldn't help but ask why ultimate moves were necessary for the provisional exam, so Shota and the others slowly explained the importance of it, as fighting ability weighed heavily on the exams. Cementus soon finished creating the landscape, while Ectoplasm created clones for the students to spar against. "For the remaining days of summer break, you'll all be developing your ultimate moves as well as your quirks," explained Shota. "This will be an intensive boot camp for you all. In addition, consider how you can improve your costumes to work better with your developing quirks. Get through this with a plus ultra mentality. Are you all ready?" "Yes," came out the unified reply. Izuku frowned as he stared at a stone wall he had asked Cementus to create for him. Closing his eyes, he tried to focus everything onto his arm. With a shout, Izuku punched the boulder. Opening his eyes, he frowned as he noticed there had been no changes to both his arm and the impact against the boulder. Growling in frustration, Izuku infused one for all into his foot and kicked the boulder, destroying it in the process. "This hockey stuff is complicated," groaned Izuku as he sat down, opening his notebook. "What does it mean to manifest willpower? How does it work?" Izuku kept pondering, thinking about it hard. Did he need to meditate more? "Midoriya, don't slack off. Just because you have some ultimate moves doesn't mean you get to slack off," lectured Midnight as she passed by. Izuku nodded as he put off trying to use hockey for the moment as he looked around, seeing his classmates eagerly utilizing their quirks. He noticed Itachi being trained by Shota personally before deciding to focus on his own training. Izuku had 2 other moves he had to refine anyway. With a deep breath, Izuku assumed a horse stance before forcefully pumping blood down to his legs and back into his body, increasing the blood flow throughout his body. "Let's see how fast I can attack with this," muttered Izuku as he rushed forward after Ectoplasm created a clone for him to practice on. "I should go see Melissa," mumbled Izuku, walking towards the development studio within the school on the first floor. While most of the students were still in the gym, Izuku decided he wanted to check if he could not only get some upgrades, but also visit Melissa. Stopping in front of the development studio, Izuku couldn't help but notice the large steel doors that were bolted into the walls. "Deku-kun." Izuku turned to see Chako, Tenya, and Momo walking towards him. Just as he was about to respond while opening the door, he was greeted with an explosion, as well as something slamming into him. "Damn it, Hatsune. You really shouldn't think of putting everything you think together. I thought the safety procedure that shield managed to drive into you would finally kick in." Cough power loader as he managed to step outside the hallway, away from the smoke. Failure is the mother of invention, bragged May as she skipped out the door. As Thomas Edison once said, even if what I made doesn't work the way I planned, that doesn't mean it's a waste of time. This isn't the time for that. Scolded Power Loader, you put another student in danger with your stunts. We were all wearing protective gear before I went at it, pouted May. I at least learned that. The smoke cleared to reveal Melissa on top of Izuku, wearing protective headgear and a pink tank top. Oh, luckily I landed on something rubbery than the floor, groaned Melissa as she looked down to see who she had just collided with. Oh, Izuku. Are you alright? Asked Melissa worriedly, though not too worried as Izuku was made of rubber and immune to blunt damage. Fine, groaned Izuku, though guiltily enjoying the feeling of Melissa's chest pressing down on him before Melissa got off. Are you both alright? Asked Power Loader as he approached them. Fine, answered the both of them as they stood back up. It's been a while. You all are Hero Course students, I've forgotten your names, greeted May without hesitation. Tenya promptly introduced himself, only to be shocked when May barely acknowledged him, turning around to head back inside the development room. Hatsume. At least have the courtesy of making sure your fellow students are alright after your own inventions explode. Scolded Power Loader. So what brings you all here anyway? Asked Melissa, dusting herself off. Well, I was thinking of some costume improvements, Izuku started, only for May to suddenly cut right in front of Izuku and Melissa. Improvements? Asked May with her eyes sparkling. Sounds interesting. Hatsume. Scolded Power Loader once more. It's fine for you to come in and out of the studio, now that a dorm system is in place, but if you keep going wild here, I'm going to have to banish you. Seeing May behave, Power Loader sighed before turning toward the students, explaining that he knew what they were coming over for before inviting them in. After a short explanation, he turned around to them once more before asking what they wanted. Melissa, how goes replicating the gauntlet you had before? Asked Izuku. Not well, winced Melissa. The materials that I use for the gauntlet are much harder to order here than back in Ireland. I'm working on some alternative materials, but they won't be as durable nor flexible as the original. It'll take some time before they arrive. What sort of materials would you need? Perhaps I could create them for you, offered Momo. Could you? I need several types of titanium alloys along with tungsten alloys, asked Melissa. There's also a few other compositions I want to try out. While Momo and Melissa began to delve into materials, Izuku suddenly felt May patting his body, much to his discomfort, as well as Achako's disbelief that someone was so brazen before asking what she was doing. I'm touching his body obviously, replied May without shame before looking up at Izuku. Yes, you look quite sturdy. I've got the perfect baby for you to use, baby number 49, my power suit. Without hesitation, May somehow managed to get Izuku into the power suit that she had created, and with just a short explanation, turned it on. I don't need a power suit, complained Izuku before noticing that his torso was starting to turn beyond normal human limits. In a few short seconds, his torso had spun a clear 180, and showed signs of continuing. If my whole body wasn't made of rubber, I'm sure this would have been very painful, deadpanned Izuku as May turned off the machine, though very intrigued by Izuku's body. Tenya tried to slide over to Power Loader without drawing attention to himself, whispering his request to him, only for May's sharp but selective hearing to pick up on it. Without even letting Tenya refuse, she shoved the set equipment on him and activated it, shooting Tenya up into the ceiling. Alright, enough. Shouted Power Loader as Izuku managed to stretch his arm out to pull Tenya back down. Hatsume, you can't just force your inventions on other people without consent, especially on tested items. Shield, you'll have to go through the official channels to get the materials you want, even if there's someone you know that can make all the materials you need. Requesting that stuff from an unlicensed vendor, especially a minor, can be considered illegal. That's not a problem. I do have a proper license to create items for people with a proper support license, said Momo, pulling out another license to show to Power Loader. As long as they don't use it for crime, and it's someone I trust, I'm able to create the items, though in limited quantities. As Power Loader took the license in question and closely inspected it, the others turned to Momo, who began to slightly blush. I had an aunt who kept begging to make her diamond jewelry and kept pressuring me until my parents found out, blushed Momo. They made sure to keep her away from me, but they also had me take that license, so I could understand the rules and use it if any of my other relatives tried the same thing. I ended up taking the license test for it, and was permitted to use my quirk for only people with support licenses that can be vouched for. And since Melissa is vouched by All Might, I didn't think it would be a problem. Well, I can say this is legitimate, declared Power Loader as he handed the license back. I'll allow it under the circumstances, but you can only make a limited amount, and only to Melissa, otherwise the other support students will start begging you for materials. You must keep quiet about it, otherwise I'll stop it immediately. Is that understood? Yes, sensei. Bowed Melissa and Momo immediately, happy that they could continue as planned. May pouted, wanting to be part of the deal, but she had another idea instead. In that case, can I have him as a test dummy? Asked May, pointing to Izuku. His rubber body is perfect for me. With his help, we can create the best babies. Context. Cough power loader as Izuku and Tenya gaped at Mei, while Ochako, Momo, and Melissa looked scandalized. Whatever. So, can I? Asked Mei without shame. No? Shouted Ochako, Melissa, and Momo at the same time, causing Mei to pout and drift away to focus on her other babies. I do apologize for her behavior as she's quite self-centered, but as an inventor, she is especially talented. It would do well to invest in a relationship with her, apologized Power Loader, while advising the up-and-coming heroes. That mountain of items in the corner over there are all the support items Hatsume herself has created since she started here. Even on school holidays, she's in the lab tinkering away at new inventions. Over the years as the head of the Department of Support, Hatsume is one of a kind. That's not to say anything against you, Shield, but... Melissa shook her head. I agree with you. Mei continues to invent without the fear of failure that's prominent in most students, even me. I usually use models on my computer to help supplement and predict if my invention would work, but she just goes hammering at it, attempting to make anything that pops in her head real. She truly isn't bound by conventional thinking outside the box. The others began to look at Mei in a new light, until she brought out some sort of canteen when Ochako mentioned she wanted some help with her motion sickness. The canteen promptly exploded once more. So, what improvements can I help you with? Offered Melissa as the air was promptly cleared up once more. With your help, I can easily recreate the gauntlet for Izuku, and maybe throw in a few more upgrades. I'm not sure at the moment, but perhaps my costume could be updated. Shrugged Momo as she looked down to herself. Melissa had to admit, it was quite revealing, but she understood the reason for it. Nonetheless, Melissa pulled up relevant files on the computer, making a few edits here and there. What do you think of a backless halter top? Suggested Melissa. I know you can always recreate your uniform with your quirk, but with an exposed back, you can create more items without ripping your uniform. We can still keep the chest window open with the cross-wrap style. It should still be enough to be compliant with the regulations for exposed skin in costumes bill. The restrictions here are a bit more stricter than the US version, but I think these modifications can make it through approval. If you want, I can also have it so the chest window can be covered when you're not on active duty, and pull when you need it. That would be most gracious, nodded Momo, observing the designs that Melissa had made. Granted she could create her own hero costume whenever it ripped, she would rather only have to make it if it was damaged from other sources, and not from herself. She had created a giant sheet from her backside before, but the consequence was that her costume had been shredded. With the new modification, she had more area on her body to create something. I have to ask though, what's with the book? Asked Melissa as she was typing in some more modifications. It's my AI Dictionary, a lexicon that's composed of constructs and materials that comes into my mind that I might need to refer back to, answered Momo. Though I've memorized a great deal already, it doesn't hurt to have a backup in case of emergencies. Also, if needed, it can be used as a blunt weapon. If I might add a suggestion, piped in Izuku, his head extended over to take a peek at Melissa's work. Why not get some sort of mobile computer with a holographic display, like Aizawa-sensei had on his phone? Maybe put it on a watch on your wrist so it's easier to pull up and put on display, instead of flipping through your book. An excellent suggestion, but I can do you one better, smirked Melissa, swiveling her chair around. I mean Hatsume. Sorry, not used to calling people by last names. Where's the hot visor that you showed me? I need to borrow it. You mean baby number 12? It's over there, pointed Mei to a smaller pile at another corner, and you can call me Mei, I don't care. Melissa quickly sprouted arms around the pile, letting her arms sift through until she found it. Grabbing it, she quickly had it tossed over to herself, prying open the side to reveal wires and ports. Just need to make a few modifications, hummed Melissa as she took out her toolkit, already sprouting more hands to help her before finally connecting the visor to her computer. Here, wear this first, suggested Melissa, holding up the visor. Momo, slightly confused, did so, wondering where Melissa was going with this. Originally Mei had planned to use this to help support rescue heroes, using its inbuilt camera to help magnify objects. That failed when the camera wouldn't stop moving around too much, but for this purpose, it should work. With the click of a button, Momo saw several chemical compounds appear on the visor, solid enough to see it easily, but also clear enough that it didn't impede her vision. Give me enough time with Mei, and I can make it so it's voice activated, compact, and able to retract when it's not needed. I can easily make it have at least 1 terabyte of memory that you can easily modify what you want inside, if you connect it to your computer, offered Melissa. So, want that upgrade? Momo eagerly nodded at that offer. This was a chance to help improve herself even further, and especially with the provisional license exam coming around the corner. Melissa smiled as she quickly compiled the request form before turning to the others. Now, is there something else I can help you guys with? The class of 1 and 1B would pop in and out of the development lab, making requests or brainstorming ideas with Mei and Melissa. Ideas and inventions came flying out of the lab, costumes were upgraded. Soon enough, it was time for the provisional license exam. To Monomo's secret relief, though he wouldn't admit it, he was glad that 1A and 1B were separated into different testing sites. He did not want to give Izuku the chance to kick his ass and boot him to the fail list. Nezu had played around the idea of splitting the classes in half, sending half of 1A and 1B to one site, and the rest to the other site, but was convinced otherwise by Vlad, Shota, and Toshinori, that it was a horrible idea, even if the two classes were closer than the previous generations of 1A and 1B. The students had all been warned that very few first-year students participated in the provisional license exam, with most schools opting to wait a year and a half before letting their hero course students try out. The students of 1 arrived at Dagabo National Stadium via bus, most of them slightly nervous. In addition to them was Shinso Hitachi, much to his own surprise. He hadn't thought he would participate, but Shota pronounced him ready and put him in with 1A. Of course, it might also have been a perfect trial by fire for Shinso as well, throwing him into the wolves, but that wasn't important. At the entrance of the exam though, the first weird thing was that a boy named Inasa suddenly inserted himself into a plus ultra chant, only to apologize by bowing so low and fast that his head smashed into the ground. They could later see that he was part of Shiketsu High School, a rival of UA. It was there that Shota surprised them all that the boy's full name was Inasa Urashi, and he had been the top student to be admitted to UA via recommendations, but it was a mystery why he suddenly turned down the acceptance, despite his claims of loving UA High. Shota frowned, wondering why he had seemed so familiar before pushing it out of his mind. Shota had been ready to just head up to the audience chair, when a familiar voice called out to him that sent chills down his spine. "Eraser. You still owe me that date," heard Emi, Akami's joke, suddenly attaching herself onto Shota. "Let's get married." "No," replied Shota dully as he pulled Emi off, "and I'll take you on that damn promise soon, probably next week." Emi didn't even look depressed at the rejected marriage proposal, and instead focused on the later half of the statement, "You better. I expect to be properly wooed." While Mina formed a heart sign with her hands, Tsuyu asked how they knew each other. Emi began to spin a story of how their agencies were close by, and how the relationship bloomed when they kept helping each other, only for Shota to immediately deny it. "Speaking of favor, I see you brought Shinso with you. Does that mean he's also participating?" asked Emi, unfazed by Shota's blunt rejection once more. "Yes," replied Shota, "joke, if you're here, that means your school's here too." "Yep. Come on over everyone," called out Emi as her second-year students from Ketsubetsu Academy appeared. While a few of the students seemed to idolize them and act politely, Izuku and Katsuki both narrowed their eyes, especially at the one named Shindo. His little act was too fake in their eyes, and they had learned to differentiate what was real and what was fake. Courtesy of Rikai, who seemed to be a fragile old woman when in reality she could kick ass. When Emi heard Kyoka and Denki commenting about their fame, she turned her eyes to Shota in shock. "Could it be, you haven't told them yet, Eraser?" asked Emi. Shota merely grunted and ignored her question as he made his way towards the stands. Izuku and the others found themselves standing in a large room full of people attempting to pass the provisional license exam. From there, they were introduced to the person conducting the exam, a man who seemed to favor sleep as Shota did by the name of Mara from the Heroes Public Safety Commission. It was here he announced that out of the total 1,540 examinees, only 100 would pass the first test, ruthlessly cutting down the 50% pass rate to barely 6.5%. This caused a lot of muttering in the crowd of students, but Mara ignored it as he began to explain the test. "After we open, we'll pass out the targets and balls, and then we'll start in 1 minute after all targets and balls have been passed out," announced Mara. While a few students questioned what he meant, it became clear when the room suddenly began to shake, the walls and ceiling opening up to reveal the whole arena that had been set up for them. Just like yesterday, there were a variety of terrains, allowing students to quickly judge where they would work most effectively. While all the examinees began to scramble to a location that would give them the tactical advantage, Izuku's eyes narrowed before realizing something important. "Everyone, we should stick together," shouted Izuku. "There's no point in trying to compete against each other if it's about first to pass." While the others nodded in agreement, Katsuki scoffed, "This ain't a field trip." Then he promptly left, with the Jiro quickly running after him. "I'll make sure they're safe," said Mina, quickly following after them. "I'll go on my own," said Shoto as he walked away. "It's hard for me to use my full power with such a large group next to me." Izuku frowned but quickly turned to Momo. "Communicators," ordered Izuku, to which Momo quickly obeyed, creating several of them at once, passing them to Izuku. "Catch!" shouted Izuku, throwing one to Shoto and two more towards Mina, both of which caught them. "What's going on, my wingman?" asked Denki as Momo and Izuku quickly passed a few more communicators around. "Think about it. Everybody already knows our quirks here," answered Izuku as the group began to run. They all quickly realized that the sports festival, which was broadcasted to all over the world, allowed the students of other schools to study what quirk they had. This event will become the battle of schools. That means they'll start thinking of which school to go for first. With all of our quirks already known, trailed off Izuku, allowing all of them to come to the same conclusion. The first test, start. Immediately, the class of 1 found themselves suddenly besieged. They were the target of the UA crushing. Hope you enjoyed this story. But first, onto the omake. Omake 2. If Izuku had Hashoku Hakiaka conquer and mastered it. Basically, Izuku discovers it at a young age and trains it. Mimi was giggling at the audience stands, trying to get a reaction from Shoto before becoming serious. Every year, the test is different, but there is one thing that's almost like a tradition for this provisional licensing exam. As all the high schools around the country compete to pass the exam, there's only one school that doesn't keep their students quirk anonymous until the exam. The top school, his sports festival, is broadcasted across the country, showcasing not only the students' quirks, but also their weakness in fighting styles. Your school, smirked Imi. In an instant, Imi saw Shota's students around it, with her own class participating in it. If you really liked your class, then you should have told your students what always happens in the beginning, the UA crushing. Shota blinked before replying, I should apologize about that. What? Blanked out Imi, trying to figure out what Shota was doing. Did he really plan to tell his students and just forgot about it? Before Amy could even ask, she saw Izuku Midoriya step out in front of the group, his hat shading over his eyes. He's alone. Get him. Shouted Shindo as he raised his arm to hurl his ball at Izuku. Amy saw everyone doing the same, targeting the lone Izuku. UA crushing has a very different meaning this year, commented Shota with a sadistic grin. Before Amy could even turn her head to Shota, Izuku merely raised his head before unleashing his strongest blast of Hashoku Haki that expanded to the edges of the arena. Amy couldn't help but suddenly shake, feeling something happening. She quickly looked around to see all the students seemed to have frozen up stiff. Shindo finally shook his head, clearing his thoughts and sluggishly regaining control of his body before looking around. He saw that Tommy Nakagami had retracted into her body, her head barely sticking out with her eyes rapidly looking around in fear. Don't lose confidence. I don't know what that was, but we still outnumber them all, right? Shouted Shindo, looking to his other temporary allies. Everyone, throw your ball at them. When only a few seemed to respond, Shindo had to take a closer look at another student before seeing the white of their eyes. Almost as one, students all around the arena began to fall dramatically, collapsing onto the ground, a few foaming in their mouths. Those who can't even stand up to this pressure should think long and hard about their own career path, cackled Shoto. In case you're wondering, problem child there is able to exert his will over others, and for those weak-willed, well, the results speak for itself. Be proud that your students were able to keep conscious after that. With so many students down, Mare had to pause the test to count how many were still conscious. Luckily, a total of 100 were still conscious, but the fact one student was able to take out 1,440 students in mere seconds after the exam had started was rather eye-opening. On that specific date forward, UA crushing had a severely different meaning from the past and future. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.